Hello and welcome to the first of a series of Home Butler driver demonstration videos and tutorials. Today we're going to start off with the basics and show you how to get the driver configured for the first time, all of your accounts linked and set up and hopefully running on your system. So I've just got a blank integration designer window opened up here. I've added a processor and I've got a demo virtual panel which I'll show you later on. So first thing you want to do is obviously add the Home Butler driver. At the time of this video I'm currently up to version 1.11. I believe you guys only have version 1.08, but hopefully you'll see version 1.11 quite soon, so I'm going to use that. Add that to Integration Designer and you'll get some options on the screen. So first one you'll notice is the operating mode. By default it's set to basic. In future videos I will show you more about advanced and even expert, but for this video let's just stick with basic. Next option you've got is the startup delay. The idea of this is the Home Butler driver needs quite a lot of resources when it starts up, so you can delay that to allow other drivers to start first. By default 15 seconds should be enough. If you don't have much on your system or no other intensive drivers, you can definitely lower that down. Or likewise, if you have more intensive drivers, you can definitely push that up a bit further. So we'll just leave that on 15 seconds for now. Next one is the resource level, very much related to the startup delay. This is how much resources Home Butler will use on startup. So if you set that to very low, Home Butler will not use much resources, but it will take a very long time to start. If you have a lot of macros, this can be anywhere up to 5 to 10 minutes for the driver to start. If you have less than say 100 macros or so, it's maybe closer to 2 or 3 minutes. You can set this to extremely high, which will make Home Butler use every ounce of processing power it can get from your processor, but it could cause crashing or your file to not even start. So best to leave that on low, but for this demo tutorial with nothing else on the processor, I probably could put that on extremely high. Play with that and see how you go. Next is the license key. You can leave this blank or the word trial or any invalid key in there, and by default you'll get a 2-hour trial. However, if you've already purchased a license key, or once you do purchase a license key, definitely enter that in there. If you have a license key for your test or home processor, you can also put that in as a second key. If either one of these are valid, the driver will boot with a valid key. The idea being that the test license key can go in there so you can test the driver at home without having to remove the customer's license key and vice versa. Next we get on to is the security pin. By default 4 zeros. Definitely do not leave it at that unless you do not value the security of your system. The idea between this is that number you should create a unique key, and it's used for the driver to connect to my server, which runs Home Butler's whole configuration. If someone somehow knew your MAC address and you left this as the default 000, they could essentially control your system from their Alexa device. So definitely put a key in there. For this demo video I'm just going to put in 1234. I wouldn't recommend using that, but this is just a demo. Next one's the server port. By default this is set to 110. You shouldn't need to change that unless you're running a POP3 server or something else on port 110 on your network. There's a few others to choose from, but once again leave it on port 110, which is the default. Next is automatic port forwarding. This will only work if you have a modem or router that supports UPnP. If you don't know what that is or you're not sure, feel free to tick it and see if the driver boots. If the status fails due to the port forwarding, then your router doesn't support UPnP, so untick that and you'll have to manually port forward. If you're not sure how to do that, then definitely Google port forwarding. Last but not least is the match threshold. This is a percentage from 0 to 100. I've set the minimum to 25 for reasons you'll work out later on. Basically, this is the threshold of confidence that the driver has. So when you say a command and it's not entirely sure what you said, if the command is above a 75% confidence level, the driver will just execute it as if you said a perfect command. If it's lower than but close to the 75% confidence level, then it will confirm with you, are you sure you want to do this? If it's really low, not even close to the confidence level, then the driver will actually return an error command and say, please try again. So adjust this as you will. By default, 75% seems to be a pretty good threshold, but you can put that to any level you like. And you'll also notice I've got driver commands over here, so you can put that on a virtual panel or remote if the customer would like to change that. So next we'll move on to the zone names and source names and volume aliases. Now, save you waiting around for me to type these out. I've already got a config ready to go, which I'll import. Yes. So I've just entered a couple of rooms and sources here. These ideally would be what you have in your system and they would match your macros. Now, the first word in every one of these, so you've got living room, bedroom 1 and rumpus room, is the actual room name. So when Alexa's responding to you with some sort of confirmation about that zone, that is the word she will speak. So put that in there first. The next names, which aren't required, are what we call aliases. Now this allows you to speak other words that will call the same room, and it also allows, with the macro assignments, to assign rooms by names that are similar to what you're actually calling it. So for example, if I was to say turn on the living room to Blu-ray, I could also say turn on the living to Blu-ray, turn on the lounge to Blu-ray, or turn on the TV room to Blu-ray. All of those is going to turn on the living room to the Blu-ray. This works for sources and also for volume aliases. With volume aliases, however, these aren't what you speak. You have to use the exact command phrase, but this allows you to assign macros based on any one of these words. Now I'll show you roughly how those macros work. So with the automatic macro assignment, you must have the zone name and then the source name separated by any non-alphanumeric character or a space. So basically you need to use a symbol. So if we look at these first ones for the bedroom, bedroom-sonos, bedroom.foxtel and bedroom_Blu-ray. All of these will work because I've separated the zone and the source with a character that's not a space or alphanumeric. If we go down further and look at living space Blu-ray, this macro will not work. Basically, Home Butler will see that as one room called living Blu-ray. It won't see the source and it won't work. So we need to put something in here to separate those two, like a dash. Moving down a bit further, these aren't case sensitive. So if we look at the rumpus volume up, mute and down, the case doesn't matter. You can have capitals, lowercase, it's going to match the macros regardless. Okay, next we have is the triggers/scene names. These are all hard-coded. You cannot change them, they are what they are. You can set macros directly to them, however. So if I say tell Home Butler goodbye or tell Home Butler goodbye scene, I can actually set a scene up for this. Choose the macro, goodbye. That will run that for you. Later on when we get into the more advanced or expert settings, you'll notice you can always do text to speech as well for these commands, but we'll get to those later on. One other thing you may have noticed at the bottom here is debug web interface. We'll touch on that later on as it's not available in 1.08 of the driver, but this is something I've created to make it a lot easier to debug any problems you may be having with your driver from a web interface. Onto the virtual panel here I've created. This is just a little test file. I recommend you create one once again for troubleshooting or just to see what's going on with your system. So I've used all of the variables in the Home Butler driver over on the left here. First one's license status. That will either tell you that you're running a trial version or okay and you are fully licensed. So if you're having problems with the driver stopping after 2 hours, it's probably because your license isn't okay. You can check that in there. Next one is the system status. This is telling you what's going on with the system. When it's booting up, it'll give you an idea that it's still booting and when it's ready to run. If this has an error or fails, it's generally due to macro names being done incorrectly, so you must follow the guidelines. Next one is the server status. This confirms there's a connection between your processor and the Home Butler server. Once again, if there's any errors in here, you probably need to check port forwarding and firewalls, anything like that that could block the network from being able to get through. That's somewhere where you might want to choose a different port if you're having issues with firewalls or those ports not working. Next one is the port forward status. If this says disabled, that's fine, just means you haven't ticked it back in here in the driver settings. Otherwise it will tell you that it has forwarded the port or there's an error. If you've ticked it and it has an error here, the driver will still run, but there's no port forwarding, so you must do it manually, and it's probably best just to leave that unticked if you're doing it manually anyway. Next variable is the request count. This is simply just a counter to show you how many times you fired a command through Alexa or Home Butler. Useful for keeping statistics or seeing what's going on, but you don't have to use it. Last one, once again, is something we'll touch on later on, is the debug web interface URL. This tells you the URL of where you'll find the debug web interface once you have that configured. Moving over to the side, we have the last raw command. This is literally the raw string sent from Alexa to the Home Butler driver. So it hasn't been edited in any way. It's good to check what's getting through. So are you saying the right room name? Is Alexa understanding the room name, zone names, volume names, so on and so on. So it's good to check that what you're saying is actually what's coming through. If it's not, I recommend you do the training through the Alexa app, or you may need to change your language settings, or sometimes talk like an American in my case, because Alexa's not officially available down here in Australia. Next one is the response. So this is what the Home Butler driver has decided to do with the raw command that it's received from Alexa. So it's basically confirming once again that your macro assignments are right and that Alexa and Home Butler are doing what you want them to do. Down the bottom here we have the driver commands, increase threshold, decrease threshold, and then the actual value itself. So you can use those to adjust a threshold. Realistically, you'll probably leave it on 75% unless you have some sort of weird issue or requirement where you may want to put that up or down. Okay, so once you've done all of that and this is configured, ready to go, simply make sure you fill out all of your macros. As you can see, mine are just blank because this is only a demo. You would want to put in your actual macros in there and then send the file down to the processor. Once it's been sent to the processor, and you must do that first, the Home Butler driver has to have been run on a processor before you can link your account to Alexa. So we'll move on to that now. You can use the Alexa app on your phone, tablet, whatever device you have, or you can simply go to alexa.amazon.com. That will take you to this website here once you sign in. Now if you go to the skills tab and just search for Home Butler, make sure you spell it right, you'll get a couple of skills here. You want the top one. Basically all you want to do here is just click enable. This will take you to the Home Butler server, which you can then type in your details to link the account to the driver. Now read through this bottom bit here if you want to understand how your code is created, or your unique ID. For this demo, as we've used the code back here of 000, sorry, that was meant to be 1 2 3 4. And go back. So our code is 1 2 3 4, and let's say our MAC address is 00152602C0DE. So our unique ID is the last 6 digits of the macro without the hyphens, and then our PIN number. So we're simply going to be 02C0DE1234. Now you'll notice this box around the code is red up until you've entered a valid code. It doesn't mean you've entered the right code, it just means you've entered a valid code. Once that's done, hit the submit button. All going well, you will see this screen come up. That means you've linked your account. If you've done this and your driver's still not working, you may have typed in the wrong number, so please check that code. This doesn't mean you've used the right code, just means you've used a code that is valid. So we can close that window here. It brings us back to here. One thing to note, if you disable the skill, it wipes that link out. You then have to go through that process again. Providing you enter the same unique ID, the account will just link back up. So you probably want to give that information to your clients unless you want to charge a call out fee and roll out there to change that for them. So I'll demonstrate that. If I disable this skill, then hit enable, you have to go through the account linking again. So that's basically it. Once that's downloaded to your processor, feel free to give it a go and see what happens. Thanks very much for watching. I hope that helped.